Morning. I'm just thinking about belief again, but I'm also just giving Phoebe her dinner. Ooh, look at that. Win a lot. Look, I used duck and rabbit flavour. I started buying duck and rabbit flavour because I was doing a lot of work with ducks and rabbits. The thoughts of, anyway, it's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm thinking about belief again, actually, because I'm quite interested in that still. Partly in relation to just some thoughts I've got about the way that people hold beliefs and how strongly they hold them. You know what I mean? About whether people not only talk the talk but also walk the walk. Because I suppose I see some people who claim to hold very strong beliefs about certain things, and I suppose I'm really talking about YouTube here, but it could be other places as well. You know, and they claim and make very, very strident claims about their beliefs. But I just don't see them being activated, you know. And the most obvious one, the one that I mentioned in a comment the other day, was to do with Christians, really. And you know, the way that what I see as some Christian, excuse me, I just want to put my dog down. Come here, please. What I see as I don't know, as I think I said in a comment on a video by Capricious Black Box, you know, if I truly believe that the creator of this entire universe, this massive universe, and even if you think it's only 6,000 years old, you've got to concede that it's pretty massive. And if I thought the creator of it came to this planet 2,000 years ago, took form, the same form as myself, and had himself nailed to a piece of wood for my benefit, I mean, that is just such an astonishing thing to believe, that if I held that to be absolutely true, in the same way that I hold the existence of this knife to be true, then that would change my life completely. You know, everything else would pale into insignificance. And what I certainly would not be doing is spending hours and hours on YouTube. I do spend hours and hours on YouTube right now because I enjoy it, but then again, I don't think that the creator of the entire universe created me came here 2,000 years ago. You know, those kind of earth-shattering truths, it seems to me, should require some kind of action. I want to see if I can play this out in terms of that framework that I've talked about in previous videos about intuitive beliefs, you know, what's sometimes referred to as beliefs, but it's an awkward word. So I'm going to call those intuitive beliefs, felt beliefs, and explicit beliefs, you know, beliefs that you come to or that you recognise as being true, statements that you recognise as being true because of some kind of external, objective, perhaps explicit evidence, and what the relationship between those things are, because it seems to me there are some relationships, aren't there? It's certainly possible, for example, to hold an intuitive belief, to a firm belief in something with no explicit evidence at all. It's also possible to have some explicit evidence about something and not hold a belief, you know, to hold a belief in a kind of abstract, explicit way, but actually not have any kind of felt component to that at all. So we know those things can exist separately. I think we also know that they can transition from one to the other. If I don't know about something at all, and I come across a bunch of evidence, and I absorb the evidence, eventually I will come to believe that. Almost as if I've kind of learned a skill, you know, a little bit like driving a car or something. And it's not a perfect analogy, but you know, there was a time when I didn't know how to drive a car. And then I went through various explicit processes, you know, applying consciousness and attention and explicit learning and reading and practicing. But at a certain point, that knowledge, I'm blurring knowledge and belief, never mind. Anyway, at a certain point, that process became internalized, and now I have intuitive understanding, belief, knowledge about cars. And I think there's a similar kind of transition can take place with evidence, isn't there? I can come to a body of evidence, and if I absorb it enough, work with it enough, perhaps practice engage with practices associated with that evidence enough, then eventually I'll develop intuitions about it, and I'll just come to it. It'll be as self-evident a belief, as intuitively felt a belief, as one that you know, as the other ones I've thought about. So it can certainly do that kind of transition. Can it transit the other way? Actually, let me just stay with that one for a minute first. This evidence thing. Evidence can transform itself into felt belief. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the evidence is true, does it? You know, if I'm given partial evidence for something, if I'm giving one side of a story, if I'm just given a whole bunch of propaganda or highly edited sets of evidence, then then that belief will perhaps be produced in me. I will develop intuitive beliefs based on limited evidence. So it'll do that. Or it could be, you know, full evidence. Either way, the important aspect of that is that it can make this transition. And I think it can also kind of make the other transition, but only in terms of limited evidence. I think if I've got an intuitive belief, let's say I'm trying not to pick a religious one, but I can't think of another one. Let's say I have an intuitive belief, a strongly held belief, perhaps produced by revelation in the truth of some kind of religious doctrine. It may be that I will corroborate that or support that or find complements of that in the outside world. I will perhaps look for evidential, you know, entities out there. I will look for evidence out there which corroborate it. So again, it is kind of making a transition from a felt belief to an explicit belief, an explicit set of ideas. But it may be limited, it may not. Maybe limited, it may not. So they can make those transitions. I think there's some transitions that aren't made so easily, though, aren't there? They're like, for example, if I have a strongly held belief and I meet with contradictory evidence, then that's really hard. You know, it's really hard to shift an intuitive belief, no matter how strong the contradictory explicit evidence. Doesn't make that journey quite so easily. What would be the reverse of that? I guess it's just hard to recognise contradictory evidence as valid if you do hold a strongly held belief. I guess that's why you get confirmation bias, that kind of thing, isn't it? So something to do with that, really. So what's this thing to do with what I started off with, which is people who claim to hold very strongly held beliefs about, you know, what I think are preposterous claims, but either way, extravagant claims, extraordinary claims, regardless of whether it's evidence or not. How does that relate to their behaviours? Does that figure in that somewhere? I mean, maybe it would. I mean, if you strongly believe something, I don't know, actually. I was going to say that if you strongly believe something, you know, you try to resolve cognitive dissonance, don't you? You try to close the gap between your intuitions and your explicit understandings, because that can often lead to cognitive dissonance. You know, trying to hold two beliefs simultaneously can be quite painful at times. I think that's the thesis of that book I mentioned in the previous video. You know, why when God doesn't talk back, God doesn't talk. Oh, actually, that maybe there's something to do with that, actually. Yeah, because I've been thinking up to this just in the last few minutes, really, about this video, about that people who make these extravagant claims about God and yet don't walk the walk, I've assumed that they do feel that revelation. But maybe they don't. I mean, maybe that's the point, really. Maybe you want to feel the revelation. Maybe you've heard about the revelation, or you've caught a glimpse of it in childhood, maybe, perhaps in church or some other process. Maybe you caught a glimpse of that revelation, but you're not feeling it. But you want to feel it really badly. This is how I would do it, I think. You know, you want it to be true, so you declare it to be true on every occasion, almost in a kind of wish fulfillment sense. But the fact that you don't believe it, really, there is no intuitive belief, is just demonstrated by the fact you're just not walking the walk. But you would get more vociferous. I think that's what I would do. If I was in a position like that, where I wanted something to be true, but I couldn't feel it to be true, I would probably make the effort to try and make myself feel it for a while. And then after a while, I'd probably go into a denial phase and just keep saying it was true, louder and louder. It's like that thing about when prophecy fails, you know, the millenarian cults back end of the 19th century, all saying the world was going to end, or the more recent one, people like Harold Champing, saying the world's going to end, and then it doesn't end. What do you do when prophecy fails? your explicit beliefs have been demonstrated as untrue. What people don't do is change their minds. They try to compensate for the fact that their explicit beliefs have not been confirmed by reality, by doubling the strength by which they declare those beliefs to be true. You know, when the world didn't end back in the 19th century, yeah, a few people went back to their farms and decided they'd just been stupid, but most people who were involved in those cults just became more strident about the truth of the matter, and just redated it, you know, changed the date. As I think did the Jehovah's Witnesses several times. Anyway, don't think I've said anything earth-shattering there. Thank you very much for your patience. Bye.